Aimee, thank you for
Hello.
joining me.
Thank you for having me in this hot seat.
Oh yeah, you are in the hot seat.
It's really nice to be on the other side because normally I'm doing what you're doing, so I can just relax.
I wondered that. Yeah, because you're spinning in your head about all the things you want to ask me where I'm at, and that's a pleasure. There's so many things I can't wait to ask you. But firstly, who is Aimee Fuller?
I am a former two-time Team GB Winter Olympian. I was the first woman in the world to go upside down twice at the X Games. I am an author, now broadcaster, and lover of life, people, and movement.
So agree with that. We're so aligned. To the point where that whole sports person, if you like, do you still keep that going because you were professionally working in sport? That would have given you a real fix. That would have given you a challenge, the next competition, and so on. How have you kept that sort of almost that consistency and motivation going?
I think it's really interesting because I definitely look at my snowboarding career as my degree of life. It's something that taught me so much from the physical element, the mental element, traveling, um, as well as almost using your sport as a tool to market yourself, which has been very, very useful when it comes to life after sport. I'd say my physical motivation definitely has changed because I never want to be defined by one thing. I never want to be solely depicted as a snowboarder. And I think that's what's really nice about this is you ask me who I am. And I am more than a snowboarder. Snowboarding definitely taught me how to look after myself on the road. And that's something that I'd say, being totally honest, after snowboarding, I fell out of love with the process of learning and pushing myself physically. So it's definitely been a journey in refinding that because a lot of people would look at me now and just say, oh, well, you've always been fit and you've always been active. But definitely there was a lull where I wasn't open to learning because snowboarding burned me out. I was done.
You gave it everything though, right?
I gave it all I had, and yeah, I had no more to give. And I'd say the last 2 years, I've sort of regained that passion and love for learning. So whether it's with my running and sort of gaining in distance or doing different races, or now with paddle tennis and my love for boxing and kickboxing, I'd say I'm in a place where my mind is open and receptive to learning.
That's interesting because you mentioned the mindset there. So, the kickboxing or boxing, running, these are all things that stimulate your mind.
Oh, majorly so. For me, it's like that's what makes me tick. And that now is my constant.
As a young version of you, were you the kid climbing trees, jumping on the bike, the skateboard? Because snowboarding became something you could actually fix on from an exercise point of view and the mindset and all the challenge that comes with that. But I was just interested in that younger version. And it's a loaded question because social media, kids now trying to get them off tablets, off phones, and not being active. You said it right at the beginning, movement is so important to you. It's so important as a role model to be able to sort of show how important that is.
Yeah, I'd definitely say I grew up outside. I grew up in Keston in Kent. We had a fairly big garden which backed onto a farm. And at the age of 4, my dad bought me a quad bike, which was too slow to keep up with the boys at Dartford motocross track. So at the age of 5, I got my first KTM 50cc. I used to rollerblade with my mum at the local leisure centre from the age of 4. I did gymnastics. But I think we were brought up in a way to just like be happy with what we had, and that allowed for creativity. And that creativity happened outside of the house in the garden, whether it was, you know, digging in the sand pit and making mud pies, or hanging off the rope swing that my dad had built and then taught us to build. Like so much of what we did and who we were as kids was outside and using the terrain which we had in front of us. So whether it was climbing trees or using the little bump in the garden as a jump for the motocross bike, I'd say it definitely installed an incredible foundation for my future career, becoming a snowboarder.
It's awesome. I love the fact that you brought that up because that sounds like an amazing childhood. And I remember quite recently, knowing we were going to be filming together, I heard that you said your dad had said at some point before you got into snowboarding, you're doing lots of things, you're doing them all well, but specialize in one thing and be really good at it. That's golden advice, right?
Yeah, it's crazy because I'd say I've been so lucky in that my parents are just very avid and always were avid supporters of me and my brother and our interests. We were never pushed into anything. I was never forced to be at the start line with 30 boys in motocross. It was a choice.
Yeah, given the opportunity.
Yeah, when the opportunity presented itself. I did dabble in all of these sports, and especially when we moved to the States, I did basketball, I did lacrosse, I still had motocross going on, I skied a bit, I snowboarded, and my dad literally said, "Ames, you're pretty good at all of them. Well, average. Why don't you pick one? You could be really good." And that really, really resonated with me. And I think it's so crazy how you can look at your career as a sports person, and I can note key points of things that my parents said, and they were such big influences in huge, huge decisions that enabled my career. And I don't think many people can say that.
No, I love that. So coming out from snowboarding to that moment, it sounds like there was a lull for you because I know you as just a force of nature, super positive, bouncing off the walls. But you did specialize in something that you excelled in, became known for as a public figure, if you like. And I know then that Strictly and so many things followed where you're clearly not afraid to try something new. But I want to kind of go into that mindset of where did you have a lull? Did you have almost an identity crisis and think, what do I do next?
I definitely wouldn't say I've ever had an identity crisis. I've always, at my core, known who I am. And my main thing was I don't want to be defined as one thing and be stuck in the box. So to break out of that stereotype requires you to have further passion and further interests. And I knew the first time I was interviewed on BBC Ski Sunday, well, it must be like 10, 12 years ago now. I loved it. And I thought, you know what? I'd quite like to do this. So going into my second Olympics, I had a very, very clear vision that I wanted to use my second Olympic Games as an opportunity to grow that platform further, dabble in the media, because you have the opportunity as an athlete to speak out, to talk, to be interviewed. So it's all about creating that narrative and go, yeah, I like this. I'd like to do a little bit more of this. And I'd say one of my greatest gifts is having another interest. Because if I didn't have that, then that's where the identity crisis starts. And I knew finishing that last jump in Pyeongchang, I was like, boom, this is it. Freedom. Freedom to the next chapter.
That's brilliant because so many people at that moment, hanging your boots up, whatever it might be, particularly sports people, haven't thought through the next bit and they are attached to the whole thing. Whereas you were literally right, chapter closed, excited about the next.
Yeah, and couldn't wait. And that's definitely where I am now. If anything, it's more pent up frustration because you want to do more of it, right?
Yeah, I can feel that from you. You have so much energy, right? And that's actually, I want to almost open that up. Like, there are so many things you've tried, and you've clearly got a very healthy relationship with failure
Yeah, you
because
have to.
you're not afraid of taking on new things. In fact, we've got to bring up how we met at the Women in Sport ball. Which how cool was that, by the way? Hundreds of
Oh,
people I know
wow.
celebrating women in sport, which you've seen change so much. And we're on the back of the Lionesses, just literally winning the World Cup, and you're on a Strictly table. And again, the energy on that whole table was amazing, but you're like absolutely sizzling. We have a conversation about filming, and you literally grab the phone out of my hands and say, right, here's my details. And we locked the date in there and then.
Yeah.
That's like, that doesn't happen. You're like, right, I'm on it. When you commit, you're all in.
The thing is, I think so often in life we have these conversations, and so much of it is a sort of white noise. Oh yeah, yeah, mate, cool. Yeah, yeah, catch up next week, or yeah, let's grab a coffee at some point. Don't say it unless you mean it.
How many of those never happen, right?
I don't have the energy to do the fluffy talk, right? So if you mean something, action it and just commit to it right there and then. Like, why would I waste time in that process? You don't have time to waste. You've got a family, you've got a life to live. Okay, cool, boom, job done. Let's lock it in.
I love that.
Like,
And
no
here we are.
messing, no
Yeah, no,
messing.
and right at the beginning, you said you love people and
Yeah,
and which aligns us both, and that whole connectivity and then growing a community, if you like, an ecosystem where good people know each other. That's an absolute passion of mine. So what are you doing now?
that's the greatest question of all. Because at the minute, every single week is different. It's so
Do you thrive
hard.
on that?
I'd say I go through phases. Sometimes it's so exciting, and then other times you actually have to take a step back and think about the future because a lot of it's manifestation, right? So to get yourself to the place you want to be, it's not going to just magically happen. People often ask me, how did you start your career in broadcast? A huge part of it is putting it out there. So, for example, my podcast, Monday Mile, I've been doing for 4 years. We've done over 150 episodes, 2 seasons of which were commissioned by BBC Sounds. And it was a vision that I had a while ago. It's a lockdown project. So it stemmed from the idea of not being stuck, sat down and keeping the conversation moving, taking the conversation outside. And at that point, we could walking and talking in a park. So I was sick of being chained to Zoom calls, you know, which were all a part of that manifestation of developing my career in broadcast further. But that was my way of actioning it. It's like, let's just go out and do it.
Combined movement and people, your two favorite things,
Yeah,
which of course leads to chat, which you love.
exactly. And going back to not being defined by one thing, it's very easy for a body such as BBC or Sky to just put you in a box and go winter sports. If she's got the chat, she could maybe work on the Winter Olympics, right? Like there is a segue there, but there's only a segue there. There's not a segue anywhere else. So a huge part of what I do is invest my time into navigating the direction in which I want to go. And that in turn opens up opportunities.
Do you write things down? How visual are you? Because that visualization is so important to probably anyone watching, listening to how I've got to where I get to. It starts in here, and then all my actions, all the things I start doing, take me in a direction where it's sort of manifesting into action.
Yeah,
Do you write it down? Do you journal? How do you make these things happen?
I'd say it's quite fluid actually with me. So we spoke about commitment. So with me, with my podcast, I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep doing it until we get somewhere with it. Because if nothing else, the takeaway is huge learning. Like, so from a production angle, from editing, at the start, I'm in it. I was doing it. And then suddenly, BBC are interested, and we're not doing winter sports. We're walking and talking with Tom Daley because they need something for the Summer Olympics. And then I've got Adam Peaty and, some of the people I've met and the conversations that I had. And that then stems everything else. Because also, when we speak to people as we are now, we're learning something.
It's a pleasure, right?
Yeah, it's
Such a
so
pleasure.
cool.
It's one of the things I wanted to ask you actually, because you talk to 150 people on camera, you meet so many other people and speak to so many kind of outside of that as well. Was there one overwhelming kind of overarching lesson that you kind of got from those conversations? Because your pillars are sport, consistency, mindset, kind of keeping fit. And although you understood and knew a lot of this, was there kind of a whole element of like, gosh, there's a consistency here that everyone is saying?
So I think the trend is very similar with athletes. It's a kind of solid, linear, one set mindset, which I, of course, understand and can relate to some degree. But some of my personally most inspirational guests have not been athletes. It's people who have been very successful in the chapter of which I'm currently chasing and developing. So, for example, Ben Shepherd, Sue Barker, Gabby Logan,
So the
and
journalists, broadcasters, which you're
yeah,
aspiring
so
to want to go more into, right?
Ben's become a really good friend of mine and someone that I look up to. And I remember the first time he came on the mile, he's been on the podcast twice. I remember him opening his diary and looking at when we could fit something in. and I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And I'm like, wow, this is a different level of operation. Athletes' lives are kind of simple. My life when I was a snowboarder was very simple. I woke up, I did yoga, I had a nutritious breakfast. I trained on the mountain for 3 or 4 hours. I came down, I had lunch. I then trained a little bit more and then I sat in bed and I was content because we needed to rest. I don't have that same contentment now because I'm in the process of learning and seeing the top dogs in their game and at how they operate. I've learned so much from that, and that's only just inspiration for me.
I love that. And so many people won't see that. So Ben Shepherd, they'll see him on the TV in the morning and the other things he does. But the amount of prep, the amount of fitness he does to keep himself sharp and fitting that all in must be really interesting to see the reverse side of that, if you like, see behind the scenes.
Yeah, and people at the top of their game, they act like athletes in their day to day because they have
Yeah.
to show up, to look good, to feel good. Everything has to be aligned. Like balance is so important
I get that.
in everything we do. You can't just hammer it, you know.
No, but you can give it if you're giving it full beans mindset, mentally and physically, yeah, and sort of running the diary, if you like, then you're gonna ultimately give the best you can, and have a positive outcome. But at any one time with snowboarding and other things you've tried, you're gonna get injured, things are gonna go wrong,
Yeah.
things are gonna go against you. And back to that super positive Amy, what does a bad day like for you? How do you get past things? Because you've got resilience from so many things you've tried and failed at and come through. But I'm almost trying to imagine you on a bad day. What does that look like?
It's funny because you've definitely got me, I would say, at a point where I would say, in a bit of a lull, right?
You wouldn't know it.
Sometimes everything can go right for you, and then other times things don't quite tick the way you want. For example, I hate being late. I lost my keys this morning. Like, that creases me inside because 'cause I'm like,
I felt that in your messages actually.
I
Yeah.
I'm organized, and I've had a strand of, let's say, things like that. So instantly, my reaction. So this is my advice to myself, and it's what I've done is I actually pull back, take a little bit of time for myself, slow down, deram the diary, and just nurture. So it's good food, sauna, walks, and
Put time
actually,
into yourself.
yeah, take a minute to step back because I definitely have learned that I thrive when I'm busy. So slowing down is hard, but I think occasionally we do need to do it. But everybody's version of slowing down is different. And one thing that I find really interesting is, so let's say we're A type people, we're go getters, right? And you thrive off being busy, feeling fit, and kind of knocking everything off, right? A lot of people often say to me, can't you just sit still? Can't you just relax? I could, I can, but is it going to serve me? So that's where I think it's so important to dig deep within yourself and actually start to recognize the patterns that serve you. So, okay, maybe that for me looks like 6 really busy days, but then an opportunity to have a night out, have a lie in, and not be attached to tomorrow. I think that's really important. But
Being
just,
present, right? Fully present.
yeah, but just sitting in it and wallowing in it, I can tell you right now, does not serve me.
It's really powerful for anyone watching, listening. And I think that I kind of called you a role model earlier, right? And I think with the whole thing that social media portrays now, going back to, we've all got to be fit, we've all got to have a morning routine. If you want to be successful, you've got to get up at 5 in the morning, run a marathon, read a book, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's really refreshing where you know what's important to you, but you're not putting pressure on you to do it in any particular order
Yeah.
and to take time out and pull back when you need to. From a role model point of view, and this is kind of going back to snowboarding and kind of right now to for aspirations to go into broadcasting, TV, and what have you. how did you have anyone as a role model from a Winter Olympian point of view? And have you sort of now seen how important it is to have female role models, and look how well female sports doing on the back of that?
Yeah, definitely. I looked up to my peers within snowboarding. So I was on the Roxy team from the age of 16. That's Quicksilver, for those that don't know. And that team was built up of some of the most incredible athletes still to this day. So, 5 years older than me was Tora Bright, Olympic gold medalist. 5 years older than her was Kirsty Boas from Norway, and she got third in the second ever Olympics for snowboarding. So I remember at the age of 16 looking at Tora, looking at Kirsty, and seeing, like bizarrely, them in the sauna and thinking, wow, they're like athletes. They have like six packs and stuff. And I remember thinking, wow, that's what it takes. You've got to be strong. You've got to be mentally resilient, and you got to get after it. So I definitely saw the importance of training like an athlete, but also the beauty in them as people. They were both so humble and so open to sharing knowledge on the mountain. And I think that's definitely something that I learned from them and have taken forward into when it comes to sharing advice for the next generation or even my career now.
That's great though, rather than being like this closed off and keep it all to yourself, sharing.
We've got to keep it fluid, right? It's like money. Like if you're stingy and you hold it tight to your chest, then it's never going to work for you. Got to be fluid and unattached to a certain degree in both sharing and giving of energy and information. And I sort of think, without being any form of expert, it kind of works financially as well.
Yeah. And on that whole women in sport, you've lived through a journey where, dare I say, at any one time, no one was watching it. It wasn't covered on TV. It wasn't talked about like it is now. Do you think there's an element of the fact that the girls are doing so well in so many respects across sport now, winning major competitions? Do you think that role model side of things has set things up for a future that's very different to where we've gone before, or is it in any way just sort of a blip? Because it feels like it's changing. That event we went to, there was a whole lot of love and there were legends there in sport, you included, and the appreciation and the whole appreciation of what they've done, but where it's going feels real.
I think it's a really, really magic time for women in sport, but it's based on the people that were before us. So, I mean, fall into that bracket now because seeing Dame Kelly Holmes there and the way she spoke, and Denise Lewis and Rebecca Adlington, they're the legends. And we need those people to inspire the next generation.
Goes back to role
So
models, right?
it comes back to media coverage, names, faces. We all know those names and faces, but without them, there wouldn't be this generation now because each generation inspires the next. So I think we've come to a time and place. I don't think it could be better timing with social and digital media in terms of exposing the game of women's football, exposing the Winter Olympics that's coming up, seeing the role models.
Yeah, and the
And
storytelling is a key part of it, and they're getting more and more stories. Well, the lionesses, the stories are phenomenal, right?
oh,
It's just
I mean,
amazing, and then the media can get behind that. There's characters. We're learning these girls have got incredible stories to then go on and achieve what they're all doing. That's where I see this as becoming a far bigger thing.
yeah, and I think the timing of it is just kind of perfect,
Yeah.
right? Because it's there for everyone to see now.
So timing with you, you're still really young, right? So you're talking about the sort of the snowboarding in the past, but that you're in a lull right now. So what are you plotting and planning? Because you're not going to sit still. You'll take time out, and even on a run like this morning, your brain's spinning. That's probably quite therapeutic for you.
Yeah,
So
well,
what are you plotting? What are you planning?
it's an interesting one when someone asks you like, "What are you doing now?" Because there's so much going on in the background. I've started writing, so I've got a new column coming out with Women's Fitness, where I share my passion and love for movement. I'm doing a nutrition coaching course with NASM, which is a company in the States, because I've got a huge passion for wellness, and it's something that I wanted to do to complement my my running actually, because that's uh, a huge part of it is work, but a huge part of it is a really like beautiful relationship with an unattachment to just being and exploring and being out on 2 feet and being so
Running's
grateful.
become really important too, isn't it?
It's hugely important. I'm also training for the Great North Run in September, where I'll be presenting that for the 3rd year in a row for BBC Sport. So I actually run and present
I was
as
just
we do
about to say,
it.
how do you do that? So you're gonna do both? Of course you are.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
and I have a few other events like that in the diary, as well as the upcoming Winter Olympics, where
Yeah.
we're just about confirmed
And we were
ahead of that.
talking off camera before you sat down about, Bloomberg, the whole America kind of dream, if you like. So this is talking to someone who really manifests and makes things happen and not afraid to try. Is that a North Star dream for you to sort of really sort of grow this whole thing into somehow you are front and center of something big globally?
Without a doubt,
Yeah, so you got proper ambition.
I would love to anchor a morning breakfast show.
Heard it here.
Something like
So that's
that.
that's a proper ambition.
I love I love morning
You'd
TV.
be great at that.
So I do quite a bit already with BBC's Morning Live, but I'm so open to stirring the pot and sitting like this and having these valuable conversations with inspirational guests. So that's definitely a dream of mine. Would I like to go to the States? Absolutely. Why not? But I think the curiosity currently is in the extreme sports out in the US because we are now seeing surfing, skateboarding. They're all Olympic sports. And that for me, there's a lovely linear segue there to that because I can speak that language. So for me, that seems like a quite an easy sidestep.
Well, you're knowledgeable. You've got lived experience, so you can talk from a place of proper knowledge,
Yeah,
but also you're a
definitely.
personality. And I think the one thing which is probably what so aligned us in terms of wanting to have this conversation is natural curiosity.
Yeah.
And I get that you're used to being in my position, and so I'm super grateful to you to make time to film me today because it's I just knew there was so many different parts to you that may not be obvious to others because you've tried and done so many things and you're not done. There's so many things you're gonna go on and do. You're clearly someone that loves a challenge. There's so many things you've done, tried at. Sort of mentioned you're in a lull at the moment. How do you manage that? Because when you've got a competition on Saturday, it's a focus. You know, you can sort of plan for it. There's lots of things you're working on. There's lots of things that could be coming up, but that bit in between, that must be really frustrating to you.
It's something that I've learned to deal with. So when I was an athlete and you get hurt, you get struck down and you're down and you're out. At that moment, it feels like the world is against you. And now the lows and the lulls, they're a little bit different, but they're equally as hard because with where I'm at the minute, the highs are so high. You know, you win a gig and you're chilling and you're vibing. But then we do get a series of no's, and that can be in your personal life and in your public work life. I think the work's easier to deal with because there's a huge lack of attachment. And I think that's incredibly important. And that's lack of attachment to the outcome. Because if you were attached to every single job or opportunity with the amount of no's we get, you'd be in a bad place all the time. But those no's are opportunities to grow. So when I first wanted to step into broadcast and I was told, well, snowboarding only, or that was my only outlet, instantly my mind switches and it's like, well, how can I change the narrative? How can I put myself in a position where I'm more approachable to talk about tennis at Wimbledon for BBC Breakfast? So it's all about implementing those steps. So those no's actually make you a better person. But let's just say right now with the null and the mundane, where you've got a slightly longer term goal. So the Great North Run is in exactly a month's time. That for me is such a pivotal point in my diary and calendar and something I love. That one thing's kind of something to attach myself to, and that gives me purpose and excitement. But right now, I feel like things are a little quiet. but it feels extra quiet because July was incredible. I filmed a commercial, I did some acting, I had an incredible gig each weekend hosting.
So really stimulated.
So stimulated. So it's getting comfortable with the lack of stimulation. And that's definitely something I'm working through. But that's where I think movement serves me so much.
Consistency, which you say, yeah, because otherwise, there's been so many things you've been able to do that are high adrenaline, high, dopamine hit. So actually, it's making sure you're not relying on it, but just embracing those times with, okay, this is the quiet time. Embrace that for what it is, because September could be flying in your
September's
life
Sep
when things come along.
September is gonna be nuts. And at the end of August, there's a lot of exciting things coming out, which I can't wait for. So, yeah, I think it's, we have to say, "Pump with the calm." This is the calm. You can't always be pumping. And I wanna say a huge thank you to you and a testament to your ability to interview someone because you haven't just gone for the linear, "So how'd you get into snowboarding then?" And it's really nice to sit here and have a conversation with depth.
I really appreciate you saying that. I think without knowing it, I could feel that there was far more of an identity that goes way beyond that, because you're multifaceted, and I am genuinely excited in seeing where you go. So look, thank you so much for talking with me, Amy.
Ah, thank you so much.